I think we'll kick off with, first of all, so David Peer, where's David Peer? Fantastic. So you've got 2 questions. Would you like to ask your first, stand up and shout out your first? Okay, I'll do it for you. So the first one is for Simon. How do you detect and manage bad data? That's a great question.
We claim, I am on the email group that if we have the wrong time or place or date, there's a place you can send an email to say you really fucked up on this and sent me to the wrong place. We get about one of those a month. So we're on 600,000 performances, we're above 99.99% on core data accuracy, date, place, time. So that's that aspect of it. There's lots of poor data. So however many times you ask them, if you ask for a spreadsheet, you say, put the price in here, they write in words £3 to £7.60. Now, that's very poor data, and you can't really deal with it. So there's a whole heap of enrichment and duplicate issues which also fall into it. But the core data of date, place, time, we have to rely. If the promoter sends us the wrong date and time, that's a problem. I think that's enough of an answer. We used to automatically send Odeon an email every week pointing out the errors, and then they got rather ratty with us and said, we're sending you 200,000 performances, 70,000 performances a week. We don't want to be told about our mistakes.
If you can each answer this, because I think you'll all struggle to some extent with the quality of the data.
Yeah, I mean, I think our key thing is we have a QA process. I mean, we didn't really talk too much about how we get it there, but we are primarily a research firm, I would say, from a data perspective, and for us it's just about good processes.
Great. Callie?
From 2 sides, from the collecting data from the retailer side, we've got like a score system that's on kind of boards, and we have a team that goes and fixes retailers, because often it'll be a case that pricing might be wrong, and that's been taken from their site because something's gone wrong along the pipe, and we work to fix it. A lot of it will come through customer support sometimes, so someone will notice, oh, my shipping was this, and it should have been this, and we go fix that, and we're really proactive against it. Alongside that, we've just been re-architecting a lot of that over the last 2 months, which should come out hopefully by the end of this month, touch wood, and that'll help improve that score.
How do you know that, if you're getting, say, a spike in dwell time on a particular item, that is for the right reasons? It's not because people are actually, say, laughing at it,
I don't think people laugh at the clothes that we sell, personally, but maybe you would, but yeah, we can chat about that. So no, for us, we don't take that into account when we're making a decision on a product. We might do more in the future, but for us looking at that, it's often because they've walked away from the device or whatever that looks like at that point in time. What we actually find is that older users spend longer making a decision on the product. Younger users are more likely to just really quickly go through things. Secondly, on that as well, is that older users are more brutal. So older users are less likely to leak products than younger users are.
Great, thank you. Okay, Lucinda Bray. Lucinda Bray?
Hi.
Great, Lucinda, would you like to stand up? Would you like to shout out your question?
I've got 2.
Great.
Should I just start with 1?
Start with 1, we'll take it from there.
Okay. So my first one is quite specific for Simon on the types of events that are listed on the list. In terms of business events and things like that, do you promote business events? How can we get business events on there? Things that might be useful for an audience like this. As you said at the beginning, you should have had this event on, but you've got. How do we get events like that onto the list?
Great.
Assuming it's a smallish number, just go to the site and add it.
Okay, so it's addable yourself?
Absolutely. Anybody can register, anybody can update any event. Anybody can add a new event, anybody can update an existing event. That's that answer. Have a look at the taxonomy. We did come from the origins of live arts and entertainment, but we're happy to do business as well.
Great. And do you want to do your second question?
So my second question was very specific for Callie.
Great.
Okay, so I don't actually like buying clothes. I really hate it. But I managed to find a type of dress that I like then it's a wrap dress.
Okay.
And I've been searching everywhere to try and find wraparound dresses. This is very
Is this going to end up with you and me going shopping?
Yeah. So, and I did actually download Moffy to see if I could find wrap dresses.
Yeah.
And I think it must be something in the data. See, I'm getting a tangible link here. Because there's too many different types of like wrap. How do you find, is it possible to work out what is an actual wraparound dress? What is a fake wraparound dress? You know, this has been my dilemma.
So when we take data from products, we look at keywords associated to that product, and that's how we classify at that point in time, and that's how we show it to the consumer. This all comes in with the data cleaning bit, so we're at the point in time where we're now starting to do like image recognition from products, which will improve with that. So you can get to the point where you want to say like, I want to have like, you know, this type of wraparound dress, and kind of filter that through more and more. I think this is the challenge. You know, I think this is why Amazon has never really owned clothes as a category. So you think Amazon has become so successful because of their categorization of products and their use of data like around that as well. When you get to clothes, it becomes so much messier because in reality, everyone calls something massively different. Okay, so like that wrap dress to X retailer will be a wrap dress. To Y retailer, it will be a bodycon, glimmer shatter, you know, whatever fuck it's called, right? Okay, it's going to be called something different from where that sits at that point in time. So it's a huge challenge. If you found something you really like, I would really highly recommend. This is brutal. I'd highly recommend image recognition, and the ASOS app or Snap Fashion is really good at that. Go take a picture of the dress that you like, and it'll find other ones that are really close to it.
Thanks.
I just promoted someone else's product, and not my own.
Thanks. I mean, I think that leads into a wider question about categorization and, you know, sort of how you're each approaching that. Do you want to each talk about? Because I mean, and I think, you know, Simon, you started off by mentioning, you know, you've got you know, maybe Visit Scotland are very categorical, and but you are using a tag-based approach. So do you want, you know, how do you tame untamed data sets, and, you know, with ontologies, with tags, you know, with classification? You know, what's good, what are the goods and bads, the do's and don'ts of this?
The answer is it's hard work. We have just had a very experienced developer spend 6 months with the Stanford classifier and some other kit from Edinburgh University, and he was unable to beat a standard linear regression plus a little bit of human in tagging the incoming set of kids events. The end result after 6 months of a very experienced developer was no better than we were already achieving. We will get there. It was using some very, very good stuff, and we will get there. It will lead to a higher result, but there is no simple magic bullet in this, and this was doing exactly that, which was trying to extract better tags off data sets and doing rejection and positives and negatives and whole recursive machine learning on the on the test sets. It's not easy.
Martin, great, thanks.
Did Barry put you up to this?
Sorry?
Did Barry put you up to this question? I think I would agree, taxonomy is one of the hardest problems. I'm a little limited with what I can say, but for our customers, they have to deal with very broad standard industry codes, which are pretty much useless. So we've had to build our own taxonomy from scratch, which has been painful, and it'll continue to be painful. I think ultimately, though, you need to always bring it back to what the user's searching for. So the loop that we have and that we actively manage is that if our users are searching for something, we need to check that we're returning results, and then we need to check those results are what we'd expect them to be. And for us, that is how we are continuing to try and improve not just our taxonomy but our search, because the discovery piece is one of the most important parts for our clients.
Great, thank you.
I'm not going to add anything better than what they guys have done. So,
Okay. Well, thank you. David, David Peer, you had another question?
Yeah, that was for Callie. It was how do you validate the data? So how do you know, or how do you validate what you say will sell actually sells?
That's a nice question. Yeah. Thanks for that, mate. So when we start working with people, we do a 2-stage test. So the first stage is correlation testing. So we'll test 20 products that they've already bringing to market, and we will look at the performance of those products against how they're already selling. So we can do that really, really quickly. Second stage test, we'll do logistics test, which is all about how quickly we can score a product, how they can do the imagery and everything else that's associated with that. Because we have such a long historical sort of data set behind that, it's very easy for us to go and pick out products that we can say this had an amazing score, and then look at how it's sold for them, or this had a poor score, this is how it's sold for them. What we do then need to take into account is how that product has been marketed, how that product has been promoted. So we'll look at how many hits that product has had on that retailer's website, what the split was between offline and online sales, all of these different pieces of information to kind of gather through that. So we test lots of different things. Obviously, once we start doing something with someone, we've got to have built their confidence and built their trust in our data, and that's part of the education process.
Great. We've got a question from the floor. Is that?
Yeah, me.
Great. Can you just tell us your name and then what your question is, please?
My name is Patrick, and I have a follow-up for that. So you mentioned something like 3 or 6% increase in sales, right? Am I right?
Gross margin.
Growth margin, right. Then how do you measure that?
So what we do then again, back in that testing sort of stage, we'll be building a model with it, and we'll show basically if you'd had our data, what would you have changed in your buying? So which products would you have bought more of, which products would you have reduced? And then as we can then do a trend curve of like how this would have traded through, that would then get us to the final point that says, if you had our data, you would have increased the quantity here, you would have reduced the quantity here, this means you would have made this much more, because we're able to track that all the way through. It's not easy to do, and like it took us a long time to be able to figure out how to do that and kind of get that right, but we can now quietly, confidently, and when we go and email a partner for the first time, or we go speak to someone for the first time, we say like, that's the range we want to aim for. First time round, we might be slightly less than that, but what we need to do is we need to work together to figure that through. The people that we go and target are now a lot bigger retailers and bigger brands, which means that 3 to 6% is worth enough that they should care to try to tackle that, try to improve that.
Right. I have another question.
Sure.
In terms of your insights, data insight, how advanced is that, and how much do you think it matters in terms of? So how much do you think that being more technical and doing more fancy stuff on the data makes?
The result is all that matters. How you got there
Yeah,
doesn't really matter to the client at the end of the day, I think, to be honest
Yeah, but
with
do you think being more technical and, let's say, advanced matters more in terms of getting more value out of that?
Yeah, like there's lots more things we can do, and we're always trying to unlock more value, so we're looking at more image recognition stuff, how we can mine other things through that, and we're always working on those things. But I really liked your graph, which was, the curve of the stuff that people care about just now and the stuff that people care about in the future. I think for far too many people, we want to focus on this is the perfect solution, this is where we want to kind of get to. At the end of the day, if we can't prove stuff with clients, if we can't make that improvement, if we can't get the business adoption, if we can't do that piece of education, we can never get to that piece that requires all that integration, all that extra work. So we need to focus on this is what success looks like today, this is how it works with them, and then we can then get more and more insightful and build more and more technical solutions to go with that.
Great. Just to follow on from that, so the chasm, that was in Martin's slides. You had Jeffrey Muir's crossing the chasm.
Yep.
Which is so traditionally there's a chasm between your passionate early adopters, your innovators, and then where you really make your money, which is in your mid-market, mid-adopters, your late adopters. But the interesting question, here's the question, is do they want different data sets, or do they want different types of insight? And how do you, if so, how do you build for one type of data requirement and its processing, and then pivot it mid-flow to where the real market lies?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
But I think
I think everyone,
Okay. So, I fall back to all the people all the time. Yeah. So we know we think we know, we can be as sure as we can be about what data our customers are interested in. And, we just need to ensure that, we understand, we think, what the early majority are going to be more interested in. And we have lots of kind of hypotheses about what we think is going to happen. But we know right now there is a data set that works for these guys, and this particular segment, they have this data need, and they also have the trait of, what I'd say being flexible enough to be classed as kind of an innovator in that product life cycle. So, I guess I'd fall back to all the people all the time. We are focused on initially data sets that that people care about. And to be honest with you, we actually got that wrong at first. So the first data set we're building was the wrong data set, and it was only as we were speaking to more and more customers, it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute, we are focusing on data set A, I'm trying to be a bit coy here, and rather than data set B, and it's mainly because Barry will kill me, and the insight was very clear, actually, okay, there's data set A, and data set A is something that we would say there are new entrants into that data. Data set B is a harder data set to collect, but it has sustained value over time. And that's something I think our business firmly believes in. And we've made that choice, and that's our bet that that data is going to sustain its value over time versus the other data sets that perhaps some of our competitors would be thinking is more valuable.
Great. Simon, are you seeing differences between your early adopters and the more mature market?
Yes, just before we go there, I hired Geoffrey Moore and we did a 3-day workshop with him in 97, thereabouts, with a group of about 70 of us. And I don't know who's got the biggest mortgage in the room, but it would have paid it off, I can promise you. I think his insight is pretty well proven, to be honest. I was trying to sell small talk based products at the time. Any small talk? Anybody use small talk? Go, great stuff. And it was actually incredibly easy to find people who wanted to use it in very, very small businesses, very specialist. I've got other examples in my working life, but I think the chasm exists, which is not quite, I think, the question, but I do concur with that.
And how are you approaching the chasm from the planning of your product at the moment?
We possibly have a little advantage in that we have been doing this for a while. So we have a media group, we have a hotel operator, we have a DMO. We've had people in different markets. They haven't all been, I don't think we've been in this brand new, this has just come to market. So we've had some time to adapt.
Okay, great.
Yeah, 100%. The chasm exists and it is a scary place if you fall into it.
Yeah.
Looking at it, what we've tried to do is, we've got a very clearly defined, this is who we sell to. Like, it's not like you can use our product in X, Y, and Z industry. We have a data set of clothes, accessories, footwear, that's where we have to go. What we've done though is really narrowed down the focus, and each quarter we start with 50 new people. And people like, these are the people we want to go sell to, these are the people we're going to go and try to get in front of, and then score them based on the need for change, the speed of change, the likelihood of getting in front of them, what their revenue looks like, and then we just work through them piece by piece by piece by piece. So the first quarter of doing that, you're going after all your innovators, all your change makers, and then the second quarter you're starting to warm up your next set, and we've probably got, think about 18 months of these sets of 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, and by the time you get to the last ones, it's like these guys are really old school, it's going to take a long time to get them to that point. By the stage you get to them, hey, we've got all of this data, we've proven all these things, all the questions that you guys have asked us, we can answer multiple times over, and we can show them, hey, this is a bit of a no-brainer for where that sets, but we fitted it by 50, 50, 50. If we find companies that end up in one of the sets of 50, where they are, low likelihood of change, low desire for change, so like John Lewis, everyone thinks, oh, that's a great retailer, it's doing really well, it's really low on our list because it doesn't need us at this point in time, and it's hard to kind of break into. So, the ones that need us are much closer to the top, and we're working through it, piece by piece after that.
Fantastic. Great, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Great, Mike.
I was wondering, looking forward to different time horizons of like 2, 5, 10 years, what is it you're doing now that will become commoditized or replicable versus what will not?
Wonderful. So where do you see commoditization in your
So yes, the nirvana for us would be to give the entire data set away for free because we built sufficient product. So we expect this to happen. The very difficult thing to do is to do recommendations. in the live event space. It's difficult because we actually don't collect any data about what you like, so we don't, and in fact, as far as investors are concerned, that's a huge plus. They don't want data based, they don't want businesses based on that personal data because of the risks, etc. So but building recommendations is very difficult. The second aspect that's very difficult is, of course, live events have very limited availability and real-time availability. So making a recommendation, no point sending all 50 of you to the best thing in Edinburgh tonight if there are only 10 tickets left. So we have a sort of sweet spot that we're aiming for in perfect recommendations for each and every one of you and we're doing some stuff.
Great.
That's a great question. So even our business, where we think that we're adding a lot of enrichments, our assumption is that we will become commoditized as well. We've kind of planned for it. I think there are different ways that you can approach this problem. I'm looking to see if I'm allowed to say what our strategy. No.
Sorry, he's nodding his head.
I'm not allowed.
It's like you're puppet master at the end of the room. You've got the mic. Do it. Do it.
We've all signed the NDA. We've all signed it.
All I'd say is if you want to talk about it after the event, I'm happy to speak with it when it's not being recorded.
Barry's also nodding. No, he's not.
I'm not looking at him anymore. I'm not looking at him. But yeah, I think all of this you have to assume, certainly for us, when we're starting from, that even if we build up a massive brand, as being the trusted source in this industry, that there is going to be commoditization of this, and you do have to think about it very hard, and we have thought about it very hard. And I'm probably going to end up telling everybody off camera what our thoughts are.
I've intervened for you there, Barry. Don't worry, mate. I've got the microphone off. It's good. It's good. So I think this comes back to my slide at the start, which is that primary, proprietary, secondary, or consulting sort of thing like that as well. The data set that I have is entirely mine. Actually generating that data and the history behind it, that's my defensive position. So if you want to come and compete in my industry, that's fine. I'll see you in 3 years' time when you've now managed to build up enough history to look back on season upon season and predict what's gone previously past that at that point in time. I think the things that will become more and more difficult is the consumer side, because we need consumers to generate for our B2B side, but we're already seeing how we're improving that, making better product, and that's where you always have to keep investing in product to make that better from that side of things as well. The thing that might become more and more difficult is as consumer shopping habits change. So for us, actually, one of the things that we look at is, are some of our retailers are going to go bust? Like some of them are, but we can work with them to help avoid that, and they need to get smarter. So you're going to have a bit of a thinning, specifically maybe of those sort of late people who don't adopt and don't change things for whatever that is. But in terms of commoditizing us as a data source, we have a really strong position, I think, on that, and I've built that through.
Great, thank you. Any more from, yep? One more.
So just as where you all started, the topic data as product, did you start with data as your product? Did you start with a product, get your data, and then turn around the data to become a bigger product?
That's great. So at what point did you realise your product actually was the data?
I think your question says we start with a magazine, but underlying the magazine, I need two hands for this. They'll tell everybody what's on, and then we'll write about all the best things that everyone should see and do. So we always had this bit of data, and we used to provide data to the Daily Record or someone like that, which was 3 column inches. So it wasn't really data as a product. So it has come, but it's taken a long time. I thought your exposition, the time. We've been building our data business for 10 years, and only now are we really putting resource behind building it.
Yeah, I think for us very early on, I think with any founding team, there's a bit of a dynamic there that it takes some time to get everyone on the same page, but we got there quite quickly in realising that there are core problems we're trying to solve, but fundamentally it's data, and having that data solves more problems for our customers.
We did from the very start. If you look at our first 4 angel investors, they're all data people. We thought it would take us a long time to get there, and we've been really open from that. I remember raising, a significant amount of money with like an MVP data product going, this is what we're going to build, like we need, like this is the first version, we need money to build the next bit to get through the stages. And that's when I talked about the 4 stages. Like actually we talked about 5 because there's one called scale after those 4 stages internally. But from the very start we always thought data is hugely valuable, and that's why it would have been very easy at the start not to collect and not to keep the performance data on products, but from the very start we kept it. So we can go all the way back to pretty much the start when we began and say, hey, how did those trainers do at that point in time? And that's a really rich resource to kind of look back on at that point in time. It maybe took us a while to figure out what the model is using data, and I think if you're doing data as a product, use the name there also, use the name, is you have to be quite imaginative with the model, because actually it's sometimes not going to be as simple as SaaS, it's not going to be simple as a set one-off. You need to think about how you're actually going to charge people for it, and you're going to have to not be totally wedded to it. But data, if you do it right, is also really high margin, but you need to crack it.
Martin, Phil?
Yeah, can I add a second bit? And a second bit to that would be the data companies are actually really valuable. So one of the things we look at as part of our data sets are what multiples data companies sell for, and they sell for a lot.
What's the multiples?
10x revenue.
Right, I'm off, guys.
10x revenue, yeah. We want more.
Was that too proprietary, Barry?
Sorry?
Was that too proprietary?
No.
Barry wants to give nothing away.
I'm going to get told off when I get home.
Great. Sorry, boss, you tell us your name and what your question is, please.
I'm Lewis. I'm a scientist. It doesn't matter. So I had a question about the fashion. So fashion is a.
You look very fashionable. So I see what you mean. Yeah.
So it's a very kind of unpredictable thing. So
Yep.
it has like become fashionable in the past, may not be so in the future. So in a way, like your data sounds a bit like predicting the past. Like you're kind of like relying a bit on the fashion trends of the past for that.
But that's not at all. So because we've got all that historical data, that allows us to do interesting modelling and benchmarking against that. When we work with partners, the whole model is around letting them test products that they're bringing to market just now. So we've got a campaign going live this week, and we're looking at puffer jackets for autumn time. And what we're looking at with that is how those puffer jackets that they've not made yet, how they score from consumers. So what people's opinions are against them. And yes, we've collected that opinion in June on products that are not going to come out until November, but the way that we've collected it is based on a binary yes-no product decision. And the way that people buy clothes is also binary. It's either I like this, I don't like this opinion. If I show you a pink fluffy jacket today and you don't like it, it's not going to be in 6 months' time that you change your mind. Some of you will, like pure trends-driven people will, and that's a part of the market that we don't really focus on that much. So I don't go to Gucci, Givenchy, any of these guys and try to sell them data. They're at that bleeding edge. They're setting it for everyone else. We're working with the people that are kind of behind that point in time. But this is a huge thing, is that there has to be value in that data. So your point, if I was predicting what happened previously, not interesting. But if I'm saying to you, the stuff that you're about to bring to market, this is what people think of it, and this is how it compares to the stuff that you brought out 6 months ago, 12 months ago, 18 months ago, and this is how it compares to what your competitors have got in the market just now, that becomes the valuable chunk for where that sits.
Great. Excellent. I think we're, unless anyone's got a question that they really have to ask, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I think maybe the way we'll wrap up is is there any final point, any one bit of advice that you would give? If someone's they're out there, they're going, tomorrow I'm starting my startup and it's totally going to be data as a product startup. What's the one bit of advice that you would say to them?
Well, beyond using our API and taking our data. I got there first. Data quality.
I think planning is everything. For our business, the first conversation we had was January 2016. The first proper line of code wasn't written until February 2017. The amount of thought that you can put in a data product, I think it pays off down the line.
So, piece of advice, don't do it in the clothes space or I'll come after you, just to start with. Second point on that is it's a long-term game.
It is
it's a long-term game, and look at that first question I posed, which is primary, secondary, or consulting. Which one are you? Primary will take you the longest period of time to do, because you have to build your data set, you have to build it all out through that as well. Secondary, you have the complexities of cleaning up other people's data. Thirdly, if you're building a product that's taking a company's own data and enriching it, the value on that is going to be less, so it's going to be a harder sale for where that looks like. So know the ins and outs of each one of those for where that is. And I don't know what you normally do, but can I say thank you to Russell and Andy and all the others?
Good idea.
Yeah. I think we should do that because it's been really good.
Well, thank you to our speakers, and I'll just follow, before I actually come to him, I'll just extend it out. So thanks very much to co-organizer Andy, so Andy from Cultivate. If you're looking for an engineering partner for your product business, then you encourage you to speak to Andy. And thank you to Callum for tweeting tonight. Huge thanks to Trish and her team for making it happen. Literally, this would not happen without Trish and her team. So thank you to them. So.